just do whatever you want because Carmen Santos isn't going to give you anything. These are all. If this is true, you're going to get plenty out of Carmen Santos.
All rise. Court is now in session. Be seated. Make a note that all jurors are present and in their proper places. Ms. Wolf, would you please call your next witness?
Your Honor, at this time we'd like to call Carmen Santos to the stand.
Michelle was a great comfort to me when Ben died. She was kind, considerate, sensitive. I can't tell you what a blessing she's been to my entire family.
But isn't it true that you didn't always have such good feelings toward your daughter-in-law?
Well, we had a few misunderstandings in the beginning, but they really weren't all that serious.
They weren't.
What mother-daughter-in-law relationship hasn't had their little problems in the very beginning?
Well, perhaps you could describe a few of those little problems for us.
They were petty little arguments, that's all. Now, I love Michelle dearly. I couldn't love her more if she were my own daughter.
What about Ben Warren? How did he feel about Michelle?
Ben was very fond of my children, and I'm sure they felt the same way about him.
Your children, but not Michelle.
I didn't say that.
Well, the truth is that Michelle never did get along with Ben Warren, did she?
Well, I'm sure they had their moments, but...
Come on! Mrs. Santos, Mr. Cooper stood up here and testified that she pulled a knife on him.
I wasn't there.
Well, what did you think when you heard about it?
I didn't believe it. In my opinion, I think the whole thing has been blown out of proportion.
Michelle Santos held a knife up to Ben Warren's throat and threatened to kill him, and you think that it's all been blown out of proportion?
We all say things we don't mean when we get emotional. Don't you, Counselor?
You know, Carmen's really determined not to say anything against Michelle.
I know.
Wouldn't you say, considering the knife incident, that at least your daughter-in-law was capable of violence?
She might have been angry, but I wouldn't say that she was going to do any harm to Ben Warren.
Did she mean any harm to your son, Mick?
Objection, Your Honor. Irrelevance. And with all due respect, may I ask where we're going with this?
I'll establish relevance as soon as the witness answers the question, Your Honor.
Overruled. You may answer the question.
I'll repeat it for you. Do you think Michelle Santos meant any harm to your son, Mick?
I don't know.
Mrs. Santos, your son was murdered, wasn't he?
It was an accident.
It was a homicide. An unsolved homicide. But you know who killed him, don't you?
I can't answer that question.
You can't answer that because you know who did it, don't you? Michelle killed him, didn't she? Michelle Bauer Santos killed your son.
Objection, Your Honor.
Please answer the question, Mrs. Santos.
The question...
Let me refresh your memory. Mrs. Santos, your son, Mick Santos, was killed. His body was found on the beach. He suffered a massive blow to the head. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did Michelle Bauer Santos kill your son? Don't look at your son and your daughter-in-law, Mrs. Santos. Just look at me and answer the question, yes or no. Did the defendant, Michelle Bauer Santos, kill your son?
He was my firstborn, my baby. He died alone, maybe in pain. They said that he didn't die right away. I think about it all the time. What his last moments must have been like. If he called out to me, and I couldn't.
Do you know who killed your son, Mrs. Santos?
This is not fair. ask me any more questions about my son, please.
Mrs. Santos, you are under oath. And I am going to ask you for the last time to tell this courtroom the truth. Did the defendant, Michelle Bauer Santos, kill your son?
Yes, she did.
Your Honor, we would like to request a short recess. Your request is denied, Mr. Marler. I would like to hear what this witness has to say. Please continue, Ms. Wolfe.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Mrs. Santos, you've just finished telling the court that the defendant killed your son. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Did you see the defendant do it?
No.
Well, then how do you know that Michelle Santos had anything to do with the death of your son?
Because she told me.
She told you. Michelle confessed to you that she killed your son, and yet you didn't notify the authorities? Why? Why not? Why let this woman get away with murder?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll rephrase the question.
Please do.
Mrs. Santos, why didn't you go to the police if you believed that Michelle Santos murdered your son?
Because I didn't think it was a murder. I was convinced that it was an accident.
Who convinced you?
Danny and Michelle.
Oh, I see. The woman who did it and the man she married. Didn't you think that that was strange, Mrs. Santos?
No, not at all.
You didn't think that it was strange that Michelle Santos killed one of your sons and married the other one, possibly to seduce him into silence, so that he wouldn't talk, so that he wouldn't tell you what happened, so you wouldn't prosecute her and send her to prison for the rest of her life.
Objection.
She's a real
That's enough, Counselor.
Your Honor, please.
Sorry, Your Honor. It's just too bad that Mrs. Santos didn't tell anyone about this sooner. Otherwise, Ben Warren might still be alive.